I never knew my grandpa Hans Olsen, but I heard some stories about him. Hans and Sina Katrina were born in the land of Denmark, and so I'm a third generation immigrant. Hans was a tall man for his age. He was over 6 feet tall, and he was the sheriff of Spanish Fork. They said that he had an evil eye, which helped him in being sheriff. And he was a big man, and his wife, Sina Katrina, was a small woman. She didn't like people who had big feet, so she kind of instinctively bought shoes for all of her kids that were too small for them. And what happens if you wear shoes that are too tight is you develop big bunions on your feet. It so happens that all of my dad's siblings developed bunions on their feet, but my dad didn't develop one because he was the littlest one in the family. Okay, let's go on to Sina's virtues. She was the midwife for the 4th Ward. She delivered all the babies in the 4th Ward. I was born in my mother's bed. Sina Katrina was there to supervise the arrival. She was a very faithful member of the church. I can remember when I was a little boy in primary, and she would come to primary. They used to drop pennies to support the children's hospital. I was there the day that she dropped 92 pennies in the little box that they kept for this fund. And then she would sing to us her favorite song, which was, "I'll go where you want me to go, dear Lord," even if it's on the other side of the world. They were baptized in Denmark, and their parents brought them here and settled in Spanish Fork. She was 2 and he was 11 when they crossed the plains, and he walked all the way. He knew Danish fluently. He was 11 years old. She didn't speak any Danish, and I can never remember of them speaking Danish in their house. There's a little history book of Spanish Fork. It has a map of Spanish Fork that was divided into 5 wards when I was growing up. The 5th ward was the Icelanders. The 4th ward was the Danish. The 1st ward were the Scotch and the English, and the 3rd ward were something else. Okay, let's switch over to the Robertsons. David and Rhoda Emily. Dave Robertson was a farmer, a mason. He was responsible for building many of the memorials that are all through Palmyra and Spanish Fork. He built the gates to the Spanish Fork Cemetery. So next time you go to the Spanish Fork Cemetery, you can view his handiwork. Up Spanish Fork Canyon, there's a memorial to the war with the Black Hawk Indians. He built that memorial. He carved the face that's on the front of the memorial. I was a little boy when all this happened, and I carried the water from the Spanish Fork River up to the site where the memorial was being built so they could mix the mortar. Rhoda Emily Snell was a regal type of individual, and her husband, David E. Robertson, was a prankster. On one of their wedding anniversaries, I don't know which one, but I can remember being there as a little boy down in the 1st Ward Church. The whole ward gathered for this. He gets his wife, Rhoda Emily, out there in the middle of the gymnasium floor and sits her down on a chair, and then he kneels down before her and he sings to her. When you and I were young, Maggie.
I wandered today to the hills, Maggie.
She had to put up with him as a prankster, but he was a hard worker. They raised a family that had a lot of people that were true and faithful to the church, and they only had one daughter, and her name was Rhoda Merle, and she was the oldest. My dad was fortunate enough to marry her, My grandpa Robertson also built the house that stands today, kitty-cornered from the city park in Spanish Fork. You can drive by and see the front of it. It was a smaller house. It was a very unique house. Go down to First South in Spanish Fork, go east, 1 block, past the house on the corner, and the next house is where Rhoda Merle grew up, and it's still standing there. And he had a farm out in the river bottoms, and I don't know whether it was a farm that he rented or whether it was a farm that he owned, but if you go out there now, there's still a thing that's called the mill race. Well, at the bottom of that mill race is where Rhoda Emily was baptized, because there weren't any indoor places to get baptized. That's now part of the Spanish Fork fairgrounds, and all of that land has been gobbled up into commercial development. Things change.
So David E. Robertson was born here in Utah.
Yeah,
His dad came from Scotland.
yeah.
So you're a
And
4th generation Scot. and
Scotch,
A 3rd generation Danish.
Danish, yeah.
We're young.